Hello everyone, in this video we're going to talk about comparison operators. We've talked about operators before, using assignment operators, using arithmetic operators, and in our last video we talked about strings. So let's create a new file. We'll call it comparisonOperators.js, and now I want to introduce you to a new type of variable that we haven't seen before, and it's called a Boolean. And a Boolean is just a variable that can have two values. It can be true or false, a little bit like binary. Binary can only be 1 or 0, so a Boolean can only be true or false. So for example, if we wanted to set a variable of type Boolean, we would do something like this. Let, then the name of our variable, my bool, we'll say, and then equals true. And if we wanted to console log this, we would just do console log and our name of our variable. So the name of our variable is my bool. So if we just run this, we can see the output is true. So that's what we've set it to. Now we can also put this to false. So we can have true and false. And if we run this, we'll see that we get our answer as false. So now you know what a Boolean is, we can start working with them. So imagine I have my bool here as a variable, and then I want to compare it to some value. So I could have a second variable called my bool2, and I could set that to false, or I could just put in false in here. So if I'm comparing my bool, which is a false value, to a false value, which is this here, I should get a true statement because both of these are false. So if I run this, we can see that our output is true. Now if I put this as true and I was to compare my bool, which is a false variable, to true, it would be false because they're not both the same. So let's go and run this. So if we go and hit run, we can see that we get true here. So if I changed my variable, my bool, to true, I would then be comparing my Boolean, which is true, is equal to false, and true is not equal to false. So we're going to get false as a result. So if I go and run this, we can see that we get false. Okay, so you're probably getting the idea of it now. So I'm going to just use a different variable to switch it up a little bit, maybe if you aren't quite sure of the previous example. So I'm going to make a variable and I'm going to call it age, and age is going to equal 25. Okay, and I'm going to get rid of this inside my console log, and I'm going to use my variable age. So if it's confusing you, we're not actually going to use this variable anymore. So I'm going to get rid of this, and within our console log we're going to compare our age, our number 25, to something else. So I could have age, and I want to check to see is it equal to 24. So age is not equal to 24 because age is 25. So our output that we get should be false. So I'm going to run this, and we can see that our output is false. Now if I was to change this to 25, which it is, the age variable is 25, we should get true as a result. And we do. You can see true. Now what you can also do is you could have this in quotation marks. So you could have this 25 as a string, and if we go and hit run, you'll see our output is also true. So it doesn't actually take into consideration if it's 25 as a number or if it's 25 as a string. Now if you had something like this, 255, and we go to run this, it would tell you that it's false because 225 gets converted to a normal number and then it's compared. So we just get rid of that for the moment. Now the second operator that we're going to move on to uses a third equals, and the third equals checks for both value and type. So in this example, previously when we had our single equals and we ran this statement, it gave us true, But now if we use a third equals, it's checking for the value, which is 25, but it's also checking the type as well. So it's checking that our type is of type integer, it's not string. So in this example, if we go and run this with the treble equals, it will actually get a false value. So if we want to get a true value, or we want this to be correct, we need to take away these quotes. So then if we compare our age variable, which is 25, to the normal number 25, we get true, and so we do. Now we can move on to not equals. So not equals is represented like this. So we use an exclamation mark and then we use the equals. So we use an exclamation mark and we use equals, and this checks to see if it's not equal to. So if we look at it in this case, our age is 25 and we want to check, is it not equal to this number? So is 25 not equal to 25? So this will be false because 25 is equal to 25. So if we go and run this, we'll see we get a false, because we want to check to see whatever number over here on the right, we want to see if that's not equal to our variable, which is age. So if we want to get a true statement down here, we can pick any other number that's not 25. So we could pick 45. So if we pick 45 and we go and run this, we can see that we get a true value because this is not equal to 25. Now keep in mind, if we go and check using quotation marks, so if we represent our 25 as a string and we go and run it, then we'll see that we get a false value because it thinks that 25 contained in a string is the same thing as our age 25. So that'll bring me on to my next operator, which is to use an exclamation mark with two equals. And similar to the double equals and the triple equals, when you're comparing variables, this does something similar. So this double equals along with the exclamation mark will check for that the variable is both the same number and it's the same type, that they're both an integer. So now we can see that it's saying this statement is true. Age of 25 is not equal to 25 as a string. But if we were to take away these quotes, we would get a false here because it knows that they're both the same. And similar, if we use a random number like 45 and we test this, we'll get a true value. So we can see this is true. Let's move on to our next operator. So we're going to get rid of all this, and we want to see if our variable age here is greater than some number. So you're probably familiar in maths of using this greater than sign. So it's quite similar in programming in JavaScript. You use your greater than sign and then you compare whatever number. So if we wanted to put in 20 there, so let's think about it. So the age is 25. Is the age, which is 25, greater than the number 20? It is. So we should get a true value. So let's run this. And when we run this, we can see that we get a true value. So if we put in a number that was higher than 25, so imagine we put in 27, we should get a different result. Down here we should see a false, and so we do. Now if we were to put in something like a string, so we use quotes and we go and compare this again, we can see that we also get false. So if you use a string to compare these, the string gets converted into a number and then gets compared like it normally would. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now along with the greater than, we have the less than operator, and it's just the inverse of our greater than. So if we go and compare this now, we'll see that this statement will be true because it's asking to see is age less than the number 27, or in this case it's the string 27, but it's the same. So we can see we get a true statement. And if we take away these quotation marks and we go and run this again, we'll see the exact same output, which is true. Now if we put a smaller value, let's say we put 22, 22 is less than 25, so we're going to get a problem here. So we're going to get a false value because 22 is not greater than 25, our age. One thing to keep in mind here as well, if we use the 25 to compare it, so if we go and look at this and we see is the age 25 less than 25, it's not. So if we look at this statement, age is less than 25, and we go and run this, we can see that our outcome will be false because 25 is not less than 25. So that brings me on to the next operator, which is greater than and less than equals. So if we put an equals at the end, so if we want to check to see is our age less than or equal to whatever number. So let's say, imagine we have 27 here, okay, and we go and run this. We can see that our value is true because 27 is greater than or equal to the age, and the age is 25. Now if we put 25 here, the last time when we were just using our less than operator, we got a false value. But then this time if we put our less than sign and then an equals, it's checking to see is our value here on the right, is it equal to 25 or is it greater than? And if either of those statements are true, we'll get a true value here. So if we go and run this, we can see that we get a true value, while last time when we just used our less than operator and we ran it, we got a false value. So that's just something to keep in mind. You might need to know it. And then similar to our less than, so our greater than sign works exactly the same, only if we go and run this statement here, we'll see that we get a true value. If we were to put a number here that was greater, like 26, this would not be true because age would not be greater than or equal to. So we'll see we get a false value. And then also if we put a number smaller than age, like 24, this would be true because age is 25, so it's greater than 24. So we're going to run this and let's see we get true.